This video is brought to you by Wondershare.
So as of shooting this multicam clip, it's a few days before I post this video, so I haven't finalized the title just yet, but I have a feeling it's going to be something along the lines of iOS 18, the Android update we all needed. And if you're new around here, you might be like, wow, what a compelling title, Noah. You know, that's why I clicked. If you're not, if you're familiar with me, you might be like, well, Noah, you're not a fan of Android phones. You haven't been for a minute. You know, what's up with that? Are you rescinding your comments about how nobody likes your Android phone? I want to make another one of those videos this year maybe. But for the purposes of this video, I want to stick to what I was just saying before I got off track. Yes, this is the Android update we've all needed for a while. You know, I have stuck with iPhone and Apple products simply because I think Apple does less better compared to other manufacturers or companies that do more worse. And yeah, that's my biggest complaint with Android phones. I've switched to them. I've used the Samsung phone for a minute. I used OnePlus phones, and those are some of the best out there, or were some of the best out there. And it's just the execution, the continuity features, whatever, they're not quite as polished as what Apple brings. But even still, for the past couple of years, you have sacrificed some sort of typical features that other phones have had. But the good thing about Apple is they, you know, do it right the first time. So we are seeing a lot of features in iOS now that, again, have been around for a minute, but they are done really well. They definitely do need some work. I'm not saying iOS 18 is perfect, but in this video, I want to go over really great features that actually, you know, improve my quality of life and make me love my iPhone even more. All right, so first up, let's talk about first-party customization in the UI. This is something iPhone users are not at all accustomed to unless you've jailbroken in the past, which is a lot more of an annoying ordeal now, or, you know, with shortcuts and custom icons, third-party widgets, that's all grand, but, you know, you can actually do some work here first-party directly, officially in the operating system, which is great here. So, of course, you can hold down on the home screen, press edit, and the first thing you can customize most notably are the icons. So as you can see here, I have black and white kind of grayscale style icons matching my wallpaper, which by the way is one of my SKYLINE II wallpapers. I also have another pack that you might like too that's iPhone only, but this is for Mac, iPad, and iOS, so definitely check it out here. And as you can see here, I have everything sort of surrounding this building that I took a picture of. And you know, my wallpaper's nice, but you might have another picture that you kind of want to sort of, I don't know, like present in the best way. So you can now kind of have your icons and widgets sort of molded around your photo or your wallpaper, which is great. So maybe Apple realized that's sort of an aesthetic thing, you know, sort of liberal artsy enough, and they're like, okay, we'll allow this to happen. So that is why we can now do this. As you can see here, you can have sort of an incongruent layout with the apps, so you can kind of put them wherever you want, but of course I kind of have them in this white space. I also put widgets up above here in the empty space in this image as well. So, you know, I have this setup here, and I think it looks great. I also love how sort of my wallpaper is sort of incorporated into my home screen setup. But when it comes to customizing my icons here, of course, you can have it switch automatic, you know, color to grayscale or black and white if you want. I have mine on tinted. There's a dark mode as well, which sort of retains the color. Also, too, you can turn the wallpaper sort of dim or bright. I prefer to have it bright, but if you want it to turn dim, you can also do that. I think blurred works as well. But yeah, I don't know. I like to sort of, preserve the picture. I don't really like blurred images, but you know, if you want that, good for you. You want that separation. But if you want tinted, you can change the color of the way they're tinted. Like this is a bit extreme, so I can do a little eyedropper here. If that'll work, maybe this is not gonna work because this is beta software. Okay, here's the eyedropper. So I chose that, that's good, but I want more white incorporated into sort of the icon imagery. So I'm gonna put it about right there. And that's what I've had. Also too, I want my wallpaper to not be dark once again, so I tap this little icon here. You can also make the icons large. Maybe that's helpful if you can't see, and no shade to you if you can't. But anyway, that is icon customization, widget resizing, whatever, and just sort of the overall new way to lay out your apps and widgets in the non-congruent traditional iOS way, which is really fun. But beyond the home screen though, we have a complete overhaul to Control Center. And I wasn't like immediately in love with this at first because the old one looked pretty great. However, I am really satisfied with this, with the level of customization, but more so compartmentalization or the separation between like different functions. Like you have your favorites, you know, your quick actions or toggles. You have a specific page for music, for home. It might not show everything, but it'll show enough. And then, you know, stuff for connectivity here. And as you can see here, you know, I have quite quite a bit going on the first page here. I also have custom or a single custom action. This is to my cat feeder here. I'm not gonna tap it, but it's right there. You also have the ability to resize widgets as well in Control Center, or whatever these are, toggles. I think widgets might be the right word, but we can, I think, hold down on this maybe. Hello? Or plus. Okay, so it's the plus button. Pardon me here. We're learning together. You can resize stuff like this, you know, sort of in like a stage manager, Vision OS kind of styles. So Apple seems to be working on this. It's pretty great because in the past, this kind of, you know, sort of window resizing or whatever used to be more laggy in iPadOS and other sort of UI elements. So yeah, it's nice to see that here. Also too, with home, you can make this smaller. In fact, I think I'm going to add a control here so I can toggle the home app. So I can search this. I'm gonna make a nice big toggle so it's easy to press. So I can, okay, so I'll do home, and then you can just drag it out like that. I might even want it to be an entire square. So yeah, I'll have that for now. So there's that. But yeah, again, it's nice to have a more categorized Control Center, whereas before it was a lot more limited and you'd have to sort of open, you know, the settings app or more to, you know, control the toggles or the functions that you want. So now it's all laid out here. Not to mention, we now have a power button, a software one. Before it was only accessible in or with the physical keys, so I quite enjoy that. And while we're in the Control Center, I want to quickly appreciate the flashlight toggle or menu now. It is completely redesigned and it allows you to control your flashlight in terms of brightness really smoothly, and also sort of the width of the beam, which is nuts. And I guess that makes sense because the flashlight or the, you know, the flash tech is a lot more advanced than it used to be. It has like multiple components, but still, I mean, let's just appreciate the level of detail and just smoothness in this animation. Only Apple would do this and spend this much time, you know, making that. So that's what makes a world of a difference for me when it comes to iPhone. Stuff like that is the reason why I stick with the iPhone, even though for a while now it's technically less advanced software-wise or doesn't have as many features. But hey, like I said, I'd rather have 25 amazing features than 50 ones that are kind of half-baked or just not quite great. But that's just me. Next up though, we have some big changes with iMessage. First up, you can send rich text now by typing out whatever you want, and then you can just click this little text menu icon, have it selected. You can send it bold, italicized, underlined, struck through. So I already did that a minute ago when I screwed up the first demo. There you go, that's crazy. So you can add more nuance to your text. You can sort of emphasize things more, be a little more sarcastic. I don't know, like whatever you want, that's great. You can also animate the text that you send too, which is really fun. So we can, you know, make it do this big animation. We can make it shake. I think that's a fun one. Actually, what's more, I think Ripple is pretty crazy. Like that's very animated. So we can do that. Again, adds more emphasis to your messages, makes them more exciting. And yeah, it otherwise spices up a pretty, I wouldn't say bland, but pretty like typical user interface that we've been used to for more than like a decade. So I love that. That's great here. I don't know if I'll be doing it all the time, but again, it's a very nice touch and it's very well done. Again, Apple really does animations like no other. Tap back is also improved, and it's gonna look weird here because I'm texting myself, but you can send emojis or attach emojis. In the future, you can sort of create your own emojis with the image playground, but for now, you have a lot more options than just your typical heart, thumbs up, thumbs down, haha, exclamation point and question mark. And even those look a little bit different. They're a little more three-dimensional, which I enjoy here. But yeah, let's like react with a little laughing face emoji. So yeah, again, more, and that does this weird thing. But yeah, we just get more nuance and flair to text messaging, which is never a bad thing. Another great feature that I'm sure has been in Android phones for a minute is scheduled text. So now when you type one out, you can press the plus button and then swipe up and then click send later and then choose a time. So I'm going to choose today at 4, let's just say 20 p.m. So we can do that, and we can actually watch live as this text gets sent. Obviously this would happen in the background without you doing it, but I'm just curious to see what it looks like without me touching it. So now that has been, you know, sort of triggered or set up to be triggered at that exact time. I'm gonna stop yapping. Oh, there, and it sent. So there we go. That's really nice because again, Like if you want to message somebody happy birthday and you might not be awake at that time, you don't want to do it the night before, or you don't want to forget to send something. That's my thing. There are so many things I have to keep track of, and my ADHD brain cannot possibly do it. However, in the moment, if I remember to do something like this, I can just sort of quickly get it done, set a time, and then forget about it. That's wonderful. So again, Android feature executed very nicely in iOS. Can't complain. And speaking of Android, Apple now supports RCS in messaging, so you no longer have to worry about, not being able to receive rich messages from your Android friends or family, whatever, which is nice because I know a couple people that own an Android phone, and I'm glad that I can actually send them full-sized images because I personally don't want to use WhatsApp. That's not my thing. I'm not a fan of the UI. Maybe you are, but for those of us who like to stay in the iMessage experience, you now don't have to switch to something else just to send your grandma or your aunt or your friend like a full picture or a voice memo, whatever. So I'm here for it. I mean, again, it was within their right to not sort of support this feature, but now I guess external factors have forced them to. But again, this is not a bad feature. It's also an Android feature too, but I think it's welcome. I'm glad that, again, I don't have to get out of the iMessage experience just to send relatives on Android or friends something that is beyond the capability of an MMS message from 25, 30 years ago or whatever. And real quick before we continue with the video here, but very much on the topic of updating your devices to a beta version like iOS 18, this video is brought to you by Wondershare and their incredible troubleshooting toolkit app, Dr.Fone.
Updating to a beta version of iOS doesn't come without its risks. Even Apple suggests you back up your device before dabbling with any beta, public or not. Luckily for you, Dr.Fone has plenty of data protecting features that got you covered. For starters, it has built-in device backup, which can back up your device's data wired, wirelessly, automatically, and incrementally, so you're not eating up space with duplicate files. They also have a dedicated feature for backing up WhatsApp data, which can be a real lifesaver if you're not on iMessage. Last up, if your iPhone or iPad are really acting up, you can use Dr.Fone to initiate a system repair to escape recovery mode, white, black, and frozen screens along with boot loop. You can even fix these issues while leaving your data intact in some cases, or at the very worst, reinstall or downgrade iOS versions if necessary. They also include so many other great troubleshooting features like phone transfer, screen unlock, data eraser, and a screen mirror app for Windows. But all in all, Dr.Fone is a great, intuitive tool for troubleshooting problems with your iPhone or iPad, especially pesky beta-related ones, without having to do too much forum scrolling and hair pulling by yourself.
And of course, I'll leave links in the video description down below if you're interested in checking Dr.Fone out. But anyway, back to the video here. Next up, I want to talk about some Safari improvements that I actually really find useful and appreciate. The first one is highlights. So here's a website for a local restaurant that I sometimes frequent. And instead of having to copy the address, I can just tap the reader or highlights button. Maybe it's a combination of both. And as you can see, it found that, and I can immediately jump into Apple Maps and get going to navigate there if I didn't know how to get there. I think too that in the future, as the betas progress, as we get to the final version, you'll probably have a toggle to call them as well. So yeah, it just sort of reads or skims the page for you and gives you all the relevant information without you having to sort of look it out or look for it yourself, which is really nice here. We also have a redesigned reader, which allows you to just sort of get rid of the distractions, which is big for me because like I can read, I just don't like reading because I get really distracted, probably an ADHD brain thing, but yeah, I mean, it makes it look nice. I think you can also change sort of the background color and whatnot. I prefer sort of black on white, but that's just me. You can also change the font as well. I don't know how much this has changed compared to the iOS 17 version, but it seems to be pretty different. So yeah, I like sort of the typical default look, but if you want to change it to your heart's desire, you're more than welcome to. There's also a high-level summary. I might put a visual up because I can't for the life of me toggle it. Maybe it's sort of a public beta issue, but they're working on giving you sort of a high-level summary in Safari of a particular article without you having to sort of go and read the whole thing yourself, which is kind of nice because again, I don't love sitting down to read stuff unless I'm like super interested, and political stuff, of course, is something we in the United States have to sort of keep up with. So if I can just sort of receive it in a bite-sized form, that's fine because I'd rather not be reading any of this anyway. I'm sorry, my neck hurts from the whiplash I've gotten from all of the news this past week about everything, and the only thing I'll comment on, because like it's a tech thing, is the CrowdStrike stuff. Crazy, that's actually global news, so yeah, I'm glad I brought that up. Another reason why I'm glad I'm an Apple-based user, but that's neither here nor there. The next features that I want to talk about have to do with AirPods, and I'm a huge AirPods person. I wear the USB-C AirPods all the time, every day, for multiple hours a day, every week. And because they're in, they now give me a brand new advantage when it comes to Siri. So now when you get an incoming call, or if Siri asks you if you want to, hear a message or do something, you can now nod your head to, say affirmative and go forward with something, or shake your head to, decline whatever she wants you to do, which is great because not all the time you want to be like walking in a crowd, or if you're in an elevator, like in their marketing, you don't want to be like, yeah, Siri, or no, Siri. Like, that's just kind of annoying. So instead of being like that finance bro, like, yeah, Siri, I want to answer this text, now you can just sort of go like, or, when it's appropriate. So I very much enjoy that here as I look at my notes. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I haven't used it yet, but when I do, I know it's going to be game changing. But anyway, next up though, let's talk about the Notes app. And I think a lot of us can agree that the Notes app is a great impromptu word processor. I do use Notion and Obsidian and sometimes Docs and Pages, but those are for specific reasons. When I just want to dump out thoughts or organize thoughts, the Notes app is where things are put. And now we have a couple new features that make it even better of an experience. First up, we can now collapse headings. So if you make text into a heading, you can now sort of have more of, like a minimal collapsible experience, which I appreciate here, just so you can sort of, show information when you want it and then collapse it when you don't. You can also highlight text too. So I highlighted these two features here. I just sort of ripped from my iOS 18 outline that I wrote in Obsidian. But as you can see here, I can go to the text sort of editor or whatever, like details, characteristics button, whatever it is. And then I can click this little circle here and then pick from a limited number of different highlighted colors, but still they're pretty nice. So they kind of change the text color and also add a little nice highlight in the background as well. So a good mixture of the two. It's sort of locked down Apple style, but again, it's nice to have that. And of course you have all your other controls as well here. Last up though, Math Notes is built into iOS Notes as well. And as far as I'm concerned, there's two ways to do it. You can just do simple equations like this, like addition, subtraction, whatever, press the space bar, boom. I was also surprised to learn that you can actually draw out stuff like on an iPad and it'll do it. So you can do 10 plus 10 equals, and then I think it'll sort of, so you can just click solve and boom, it'll spit out a number there. So that's great here. I don't think it works sort of in like the way where you can sort of just like write like 10, 10, and then line. Maybe it'll work. Oh, it does. Okay, so actually the Math Notes experience is pretty much identical. You just use your finger on your iPhone because of course you can't use an Apple Pencil here. But if you want to type it out quickly, which I would imagine is sort of what you're going to be doing more conveniently, you got to do it sort of in like a linear way. But anyway, completely unlike math, which is never fun for me, gaming is now even more fun thanks to Apple implementing game mode into iOS. Basically, this feature will automatically kick on to prioritize game performance as one is running, right in front of you. It'll minimize background tasks to give you the best frames here. And usually that happens automatically, although I just showed you sort of the manual or control center menu here where you can toggle it on and off. So yeah, I would imagine this will help you out if you have an older device where you're sort of sharing power with the CPU, GPU, and RAM. With newer devices, I would imagine it sort of matters a little less, especially with games that are less sort of intensive. But if you're running something that's like, an FPS shooter that's very intense, or just anything that has intense graphics or, ray tracing or whatever, especially newer titles that are better suited for these new chips like the A17 Pro and whatnot, yeah, it definitely helps to prioritize, what you got going on here, because it will again give you the best frames. So that is nice. Apple seems to be taking gaming a lot more seriously, simply because the chips that they have now are so much better than they used to be across the board. So I would imagine, take a drink every time I say that. Apparently, I would imagine that gaming developers are realizing that the iPhone, iPad, and the Mac are a really great, as Apple calls it, unified gaming platform. So I would expect to see better and better titles coming, so game mode will be even more important. All of this to say, I'm glad that Apple now has a default feature that lets you squeeze all the performance out of your SoC that you can with regard to gaming. Next up though, we have the Passwords app, which is sort of a consolidated app that categorizes all your passwords that were formerly in the iCloud keychain UI, which wasn't like bad, but you couldn't really get to it easily. I think you had to go into settings or sort of have it, pop up in front of you when you need to access passwords. Now you have your passwords all in one place, codes as well. I'm gonna just open up the Wi-Fi list here because that's the least problematic. But anyway, it's nice that you can just unlock this and just sort of immediately see what your passwords are, because sometimes they don't pop up. Maybe you're on another device, sort of like a third party, or not third party, like a library computer or a relative's computer or somebody else's device. All you got to do is literally type in passwords into your app library or Spotlight, or just open this app if it's on the home screen or in your app library, and boom, it's all here. It's first party. Not to be too cliche, but I do trust Apple for the most part when it comes to security, despite some controversy recently about AI scraping, like whatever. The point is, I do trust them. I've trusted them with my iCloud keychain, so the fact that we have a consolidated experience, first party at that you don't have to pay for, is really, really great. So across the board on here, iPad, Mac, and also Vision OS, it's great to see this, and I'm glad that Apple of all companies has finally made this a first party app or experience. And conveniently, on the same topic of security, you can now lock your apps 2 ways, any app that you have for that matter. So let's just pretend I wanted to lock Spotify. You can require Face ID to open it up, which is a bit ridiculous. So I mean, I'm just gonna tap it for the purposes of this demo here, so it'll scan my face. So now whenever I open Spotify, if it's completely closed, I have to actually use my face to unlock it. Maybe you're a DJ and you need to do that. I don't know, whatever your reasoning is, go you. You can also go a step further and hide the app alongside authenticating it or locking it with Face ID. So you can click hide and require Face ID. So it will ask you to scan your face. You can hide the app, and then it will go into a hidden folder. And I actually already have an app there. Drum roll, please, if you want to guess what it is. I have TikTok locked up because there have been so many times where I look at my screen time usage and I'm like horrified, and I've deleted the app. But the thing is, I'm a content creator. I sometimes post on TikTok. I also want to see TikToks because they're harder to view without having the app. So my solution to sort of overusage is to not only add screen time limits, but to also sort of have sort of like a wall in between easy access. So I have to go to the hidden folder. I have to open it up with Face ID. And then if you close it, it doesn't show up in your, or actually, hold on. If you swipe out and you go into another app, it will not show up in your multitasking switcher. So it's harder to access. So that's like a little barrier to entry for me that I like. What the heck happened to one of my widgets? Anyway, not the point. It's because Spotify is hidden in the folder. Oh my gosh. So that's interesting. So let me unhide that actually. So I'm gonna not require Face ID and unhide it. So now it's gone. And my widget should come back, I hope. Let's see. No, I actually have to bring it back. That's annoying. So be aware that if you hide your app, it will disappear from your home screen along with the widgets associated with it. But anyway, for TikTok at least, I like having that barrier to entry. Also too, if you legitimately have a reason to hide an app, hopefully it's for a moral reason, but otherwise, do you. Your security, your privacy is important. Be wary that people might be a little skeptical of what's in the hidden folder, but anyway, that's just me. But yeah, for me, I use it for TikTok and it's working pretty well. And last, but certainly not least, we have Apple Intelligence features, which I cannot demo at this time because they are not ready. This really was Apple's focus for this year, this past WWDC. It's very apparent. We get some writing and communication focused stuff, so you can kind of like jot stuff down and have, sort of a GPT type thing, their own language model. Also, I think ChatGPT as well, depending on what you do, sort of edit text for you, change the style of your writing, whatever, which is nice. So if you want to thought vomit or, sort of coherently answer email without spending too much time, you can do that. You have the image playground, which I think the usage that I'm most excited about is creating custom emojis to use as reactions and also just emojis in general. And then last up here, we have a contextual Siri that's coming, which is going to be huge because now you can, or in the future, you're going to be able to ask it to do multiple things at once. Sort of the solution that Rabbit and was the other company, Humane, were trying to solve, abysmally, of course. But Siri is going to be super powerful and allow you to, again, sort of do multiple things at once and recall a lot of information all in one go. So Siri will actually be useful, and it'll actually sort of meet the requirements that we thought it would back in the day. But of course, that was server cloud computing in 2011, so that was never really possible, but now it is. So it's hard to sort of explain the nuance with Siri and all this without demoing it, but it's certainly a big deal, and it's certainly a reason to consider buying a new iPhone. It is kind of upsetting that Apple is only sort of gatekeeping this to newer iPhones, but it is definitely a CPU intensive task and needs a good neural engine. So yeah, that's kind of the way it is. So if you were holding off on buying an iPhone, it's certainly not a bad time to buy a 15 Pro. Not the greatest time to buy a 15, but definitely a good year to buy the 16 versions, which are going to be good. So good year to buy the iPhone. iOS 18 features are already great on top of Apple Intelligence, which we've yet to experience here. And that about wraps up this video. I have not been this excited about iOS in a while. I hope you enjoyed. I have another video about macOS coming soon-ish, I think. Check out my link to Wondershare in the video description, Dr.Fone. Also check out my SKYLINE and SKYLINE II wallpaper packs. You can have a setup like this if you want. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.